Because new polling suggests Angela Rayner's plan to introduce an official definition of Islamophobia could cost the Labour Party more than 1 million votes, which would hand Reform UK a 100-seat majority at the next election.
Well, the Deputy Prime Minister has appointed a panel to draw up the definition across the public sector, despite warnings it could stop politicians speaking up on all sorts of issues, including grooming gangs. OK, well, joining us now is cultural historian Philip Kiszely. Philip, this definition of Islamophobia is proving rather difficult to come up with. Why is that?
Well, I don't think we should be dealing with the word Islamophobia in the first place, OK? The word Islamophobia comes from the Muslim Brotherhood, and it was popularised in the UK by the Runnymede Trust. I don't think we should be dealing with those terms at all. So that is the first fundamental problem for me, OK? But the reports today, all of the press today were saying that this is a great big shock and that Nigel Farage is going to receive 100 votes. It's not a shock at all. It's completely inevitable, because the last thing people need is, or the last thing that people want, is a de facto blasphemy law, and a law that equates religion with race, that really does shut people down, and that is an attack on democracy. So I think all of those things, this is, singling out one religion, the religion that actually is the only religion in this country that is connected with terrorism, that terrorism is actually committed in the name of this religion, and it is removing it from criticism. I think it's extremely worrying. People are extremely worried by it, and of course they will turn to politicians and parties that will push against it.
You could argue that there are sort of people who would claim to be Christian that commit acts of terrorism as well, that Catholicism for a long time was associated with terrorism. Although I suppose the counter-argument to that is, of course, we never needed a definition for anti-Catholic bias. We don't have a definition for anti-Christian bias or anti-Hindu bias or anti-Scientologist bias or anti-Mormon bias. We just don't do... Why single out Islam to have some sort of special protection?
Have you had a random call lately from a strange number, maybe trying to sell you something or even scam you? If so, your info could be out there. That's because of data brokers, shady companies that scrape the internet for your personal details and sell them to marketers or even scammers. These days, scammers can even use AI to mimic your friends' voices and trick you into sending money. It's not just annoying. Data brokers often target vulnerable people with high-interest loans or sketchy offers. But there is a solution. Incogni, the sponsor of this video. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and requests your info be deleted from their databases. And because your data can keep popping up, Incogni keeps sending removal requests to make sure it stays gone. They've just launched a new unlimited plan with custom removals. If you find your info on a weird website, just send them the link and their privacy team will work to get it taken down. Getting started is easy. Hit the link in the description, create your account and let Incogni handle the rest. It's risk-free for 30 days and you'll get 60% off an annual plan with the code GBNews. Take back control of your data with Incogni.
Yeah, again, I mean, you could only think that there is a lobby going on here, and there is something happening within the Labour Party, and it's almost as though they're choosing a particular voting base. Okay, it's almost as though they're choosing the Muslim voting base, and by definition, they are pushing away their traditional working class voting base, because it is the working class, obviously, in the red wall seats who are really pushing back against this, and who would take 100 seats away from them. So it's a very clear choice here. They are looking to the future. This is very definite. They're doing something very specific. They are privileging the Muslim vote over the working class.
Philip, some people would push back and say, well, we've got a definition of anti-Semitism, so why can't we have a definition of Islamophobia? What's the difference there?
I think there's a real difference here, and I'm actually wearing this pin at the moment, which is about the hostages still being held in Gaza. I think we've seen a rise over the last few years, and specifically over the last few weeks, of massive anti-Semitism across the institutions. And you have to look at which communities are particularly anti-Semitic in this country, and bearing in mind what was happening on the streets of London on Saturday, where they were calling for the death of the Jewish state in the name of pro-Palestinian protest. I think we know the answer to that. So Jews are extremely vulnerable, and I've got very many close Jewish friends who are frightened of going out on the streets on Saturdays.
But is it because to be a Jew is an ethnicity rather than just a belief system? Philip, is that the fundamental difference that's why you can define it in such a way?
No, Judaism is an ethno-religion. It is actually an ethno-religion, whereas Islam is just a religion. It's an ideology.
Yes, so there's a difference there.
So the difference there is, but I think it's
one of the interesting things, Philip, for me is that you can be an atheist Jew.
Exactly.
But you can't be an atheist Muslim. I mean, atheist Muslims are called ex-Muslims. They're not Muslims. Whereas there are lots of atheist Jews. There are lots of people who have the culture, who have the history, who have the family. There are people, but they don't necessarily believe in everything in the Torah. I suppose for me that is a really instructive way to look at it.
I think it is, and I think we can also just be very direct and very clear here and say how many Jews are on Prevent's watch lists, and I would suggest it's pretty much none. Okay, I would suggest which ethnicity, which religion is really vulnerable in this country. I would very definitely say it's Jews, because they're not, the protesters aren't even using the word Zionism now. They're using Jewish.
But we have, Philip, we have seen a rise in the term that we would prefer, anti-Muslim hatred, in terms of the experience of Muslims on our streets, as we've seen a rise in the uptick of anti-Semitic attacks. So in terms of addressing that, you would argue that a definition is not helpful, or is anti-Muslim hatred the preferred?
No, I don't think a definition is helpful, and I don't really think you can compare the two. If there is anti-Muslim hatred going on in the streets of this country, it isn't anywhere near the same level as anti-Semitic hatred. And let me be clear about this. And any kind of hatred, any kind of anti-this or anti-that hatred is completely unacceptable. But I think what we need, rather than closing down the debate, okay, and we know what the problems are there with Pakistani heritage rape gangs, etc. Anybody who wanted to criticize those people were terrified of doing so because they were thought to be, they were frightened of being called racist. I'm thinking about Salman Abedi, the man who detonated a bomb full of nuts and bolts in 2017 in Manchester, where I'm from, actually. Okay, the security guard there was terrified of saying anything because he was frightened of being racist. So let's open up the debate. Let's stop all of this nonsense about blasphemy, because that's what it comes down to. Let's say there are some people in this country, terrorists and rapists and God knows what. Let's deal with them. It doesn't matter where they come from. Let's deal with them, and let's not shut down the debate.
OK, well, Philip Kiszely, cultural historian, thanks indeed for joining us.